Rise of Africa, the continent, the diaspora, and BRICS explores the relationships that are affecting the global economy right now. This book explores the relationships of the African diaspora's influence on the African continent and why this is important in stabilizing relationships with an understanding of how BRICS impacts the future, good or bad. You can order your copy of The Rise of Africa today on Amazon.com.
Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. The reason that I can say that is you have a couple of different factors occurring right now as we speak on the world stage. The dollar is being disrupted. Nations are no longer wanting to engage with the United States. But the third factor that affects each and every one of us is that there is a diaspora from the African continent that's willing and able to engage our brothers and sisters on the continent.
Shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom. Greetings to all my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world, whether you're of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the house of Israel, or you're Gentile grafted into the house under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. I welcome you all this morning. Today is December 1st. 2025. We only have less than a month left in this year. I'm sorry, this year was a year of the setups. Now, did the Deagle report, it failed, but I don't think it failed. I just think, honestly, what it was, it's still the setup. It's still the setup of the mass casualties that it's getting ready to happen. And I don't know how else to say that. I can't say that. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. Is that true? Is that this? The reality is, let me tell you, there are so many setups that it's not even funny. You have the setup going on in Ukraine with Russia and Ukraine and this whole, fake peace plan. It was all a setup. And I told you it was a setup because the reality was, we talked about this even last week, nothing was going to happen. Ukraine is getting totally obliterated by Russia. Plain and simple. And I loved listening to those channels that obviously they're good at prepping. They're good at prepping. I'm not taking that away from them. They'll let you know how to make, sand filtration. That's great. How to make a shelter and, make your own axe. A big old kiln furnace. to fabricate some tools out of sand molding. Hey, I think that that's incredible. But the thing is, I'm sorry, I've had over 20 years of experience dealing with this. I've had over 20 years of experience understanding how the system works from the military point of view. I've been able to see and understand and be in the rooms with those higher, bigger up people. And I can definitely say that right now, this nation is on a very, very interesting path. When you hear the word treason getting thrown around, well, why is that? Why did we hear treason just getting thrown around? Because the reality is you have a let's and before I go on, let me just explain this here. Covenant Awakenings does not have a position, whether on the right or left, of any type of political stance. This channel is expressly designed for the intent of analyzing biblical prophecy with today's events based on a non-heliocentric view of the scriptures. So I want to do that because I'm going to tell you a lot of the things that I'm getting ready to say it's not so much controversial. It's this. It's going to disrupt the algorithm. Yeah, the same algorithm that's throttling my channel, Sister Shonda's channel, Brother Jacob and Teyu's channel, Pastor Rick Fletcher's channel, and so much more. So many more. Because why? Because do you think that this algorithm wants us to reach the audiences, the masses? So when we say like, share, subscribe, or comment, or whatever, it really does, because I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, all of these quote unquote algorithm set or algorithm friendly content is literally, people would say, oh, it's going to lead people to hell. No, it's going to lead people to literally obliteration while they're enjoying themselves, thinking that the algorithm said everything was okay. Because I got this content and that content, and this was YouTube friendly, and this was a community guidance, and this was this. And guess what? The reality is, all of that is designed so that when you are destroyed, you can be destroyed much more comfortably. Because what they don't want to tell you, and this is why a lot of military members, and I'm going to give a shout out to Paul for off grid desert farming with Paul and Adrian. I'm going to give a shout out to Paul, and Paul, he's a Gentile that tries. He and I'm going to say this: 80% of understanding, at least, is some understanding. So I give credit to where credit's due. Give honor to where honor's due. But I do have to come back to the reality is we're in a time and we're in a situation to where it's not looking good for the United States. We could go back and we can reference Jeremiah 50 and 51 as much as we want. The problem that I always say is you can reference the scriptures, but if you don't know how things are built up to where we're seeing that reference coming into pass, then guess what? Then what good was that scripture? What good is the Most High's word if you can't understand the time and the season of where that word is applicable in? See, we're understanding the time and the season. We're understanding why the beast turns on the whore. We're understanding why Europe is getting mad, because the whole Russian peace plan is that basically Russia and the United States divides up the spoils. They're getting mad because Biden led them into the okey doke, while the U.S. is there counting the spoils of a bankruptcy, a bankrupted nation, a bankrupted Europe. Let's just face it, Europe ain't got no legs. They literally had their legs undercut from underneath of them in a very hilarious manner. Hey, well, guess what? Don't feel too bad. I'm suffering too over here in the United States. You see us, you see this economy, we're suffering too. I don't know how we're gonna make it. Hey, Russia, you got my bag, Russia? Yes, Donald. Everything planned exceedingly well. Execution flawless. That is my worst Russian accent. Dobry din, comrades. Tak dila. How are you this morning? I'm reporting live from Moscow. Spasiba. Pajasta, pajasta. Oh. Well, when you were a Central Asian country desk engagement officer for a few years, you're going to pick up on the Russian lingo. And the vodka, of course. And some of their whatever their bourbon, their whiskey, whatever they want to call it, that mess was just pure battery acid. Hurts me to this day to think about that. Ugh. All for the sake of military diplomacy. But let me go back to why, Houston, we have a problem. We have a problem because now you're starting to have veterans speaking on up. And I'm going to tell you, when veterans start to speak up, there's a problem. And they speak up. It's not for the sake of. Here's what I want to preface and caveat this on. It's not for the sake that people are speaking up because of just righteousness, right? Oh, I just want to make sure that there's peace on earth and goodwill towards men because this is that special season. No. The reason that they're speaking up is because they know that it is a legitimate existential threat, not just to them, but to the governmental authority that's in place. When you essentially you have a rogue nation, which is what it is. It's a rogue government. And that rogue government, it's not the fact of, see, here's the argument that they give you. And I like it. It's palpable because it doesn't want to panic and freak people on out. Here's the argument. Well, Hegseth's comments, they're naughty, they're bad, they're naughty. And it could result in criminal prosecution, and it doesn't make the United States look good, and you're going to have issues. That is literally the high level analysis on that one. Because you want to know why? Because they don't want to scare you with what that actually means. Washington Post. Hegseth conscripts the Pentagon for Trump's retribution campaign. After Donald Trump's election last year, a retired Army general who'd been critical of the president in the past made a list of the ways that incoming administration could come after him should he speak out again. He identified as three scenarios: a civil suit, an IRS audit, or a recall to active duty, where conceivably he could face criminal charges in the military's justice system, which is true, which is why I made that statement of indemnification. The retired general, speaking on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retaliation, recalled that exercise after Trump's defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, said Monday that the Pentagon will investigate Mark Kelly, a Democratic senator from Arizona and retired Navy officer, for his role in making a controversial video reminding members of their duty to disobey lawful orders. Here's what that leads to. And it's funny because you're now seeing the escalation up the Civil War ladder. We talked about this. There is literally an escalation. There is an escalatory process that's happening. And people don't want to understand that and I wish I could find that video of the veteran saying, we got your back, to current active duty members of the armed forces. And the reason that they're saying that is simply this. Here's the option that you're the only options that Trump has, especially when Pete Hegseth had said to kill them all, not offering quarters. And this is what even me, as an intel officer, as a targeting officer, doing BDA, battle damage assessments, you just can't have people just go over and over again. Okay, just mop them up. No, it's a duty to care. So what you just see is there is no rule of war. There's no law of warfare. It's literally, I'm going to do what I want to do without any type of retribution or reprisals. Do you know what that means? That means that now there's an open case that can go before the ICC. And guess what it can implicate? The whole Trump administration. Why do you think that? Remember we were going down that timeline last week. There's a timeline. The ICC was on that timeline of defunding the ICC. Remember all that? Right before things popped off in what? June? See, they don't like to go into that. They didn't like that second quarter. They didn't like April onwards because there's a lot of things going on with that Eastern Mediterranean nation over there, and how the United States conveniently cut off funding the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice at The Hague. Sorry. Now, I guarantee you there's a referral that's made, and I guarantee you that probably sometime by the end of this week, you'll have complaints by Venezuela, probably by Colombia. And I would say that those complaints will be tacked on to other complaints, other countries. And guess what? Now countries would be able to have the judicial authority to go after the United States. See, people, their analysis is very, very shallow because people don't think that that can't happen. And here's the reality: the gamble is on. Russia deployed fighter jets over to Venezuela. Russia also had deployed a couple of different troops. Remember, Wagner's there. You think that Wagner's gonna just sit back and watch? Heck no. You probably have a couple of also Russian subs sitting over there in the Atlantic that's ready to pop off. And guess who gets targeted first? Well, number one, Trinidad and Tobago, they're in the corners. Sorry, if you're a Trinidadian, next time you visit, it may not be the same as what you remember. That's what ends up happening when you made yourself a combatant. Oh, don't worry. When they destroy everything, we'll clean it on up. Well, what happens if they don't have the capability to? You just listen to the fool. And you're going to pay the foolish price. Oh, don't worry. I'm also within range of whatever weapons that they have deployed, because what they were trying to say when they're talking about Admiral Bradley and his affiliations with JSOC, that's Joint Special Operations Command, that's over in Fort Bragg. I had to check out of there back in July of 2020. 15 days in confinement. That was fun. Why? Because they just like to mess with people. Everything that they do is just to psychologically mess with you for whatever reason. And honestly, I didn't care. I said, well, thank you, Father. I did a lot of praying and reading my word at that time while they gave the three hots. And the reality is, you now have service members, because they understand what that could mean, not just politically, but they know what that could mean economically. You now have countries now saying that they have a right to boycott everything American. They have countries that say, look, we cannot support humanitarian efforts. And guess what? You would then give Houthis the credence to target all American ships. Oh, that's fun. You also give South Africa the ability to target American ships passing through the Cape of Good Hope. That's even better, especially since America's beefing with South Africa. It's so stupid. They don't understand the geopolitical consequences. But the reality is, a lot of veterans like myself do. A lot of retirees like myself do. We understand, oh, yeah, this is a bigger implication. So, with Hexat thinking that he's all nice and comfortable, well, let me tell you, chances are he's going to get fired. If not this week, probably next week. Or if he doesn't get fired, guess what? I'm sure that those diplomatic overtures and letters have been going out to the embassies, and those embassies going to Rubio, and Rubio passing that over to the president, and they're probably calling for Pete Hegseth's resignation as we speak. And to me, personally speaking, I don't think that our the president of this nation, I don't honestly think that he's of sound mind. Just my personal opinion. I don't think that he's all the way there to make competent decisions, which is why, more than likely, which is why they're taking advantage of his lack of constitution for the most part. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll just blame it on him. And in his declined state, look, when you go through dementia, you're going to have bouts of cognitive episodes, coherency, and then you're going to have bouts of where you're just mumbling to yourself. So they're probably trying to give him as much of the vitamin C's and B's and everything else, the B12s and potassiums to get him up to where he needs to go before he mentally declines again. That's how that goes. Oh, look, he has such a moment of clarity because they're giving him the drug cocktails that are enabling those synapses to fire off in the brain. Other than that, they're just probably dulled. But that's a payoff. There's a trade-off, excuse me. There's a trade-off on that. Because as you do that, and the more you have to stimulate, guess what? That overstimulation actually then starts to decline, and it then starts to weaken your cognitive processes. Our minds it's a computer. And when the motherboard starts to fry, which is what's happening, the motherboard is starting to burn out and fry. They can't keep up those connections. So you're probably going to have a big hit in terms of, seeing Trump a lot. And then probably right after the end of this year, then you're going to see a very big decline. Or let me tell you, a decline will happen, but we won't be able to see it. And as that goes on, then they'll say, well, you want to know what? Due to now you have a civil unrest, you now have an insurgency fomenting where you now have people, more than likely, as I've stated, people are probably getting cut off. And one thing that I have to tell you about, and I forgot to tell you about this, when you're talking about Afghanis, they delete people for their honor. It doesn't matter. It don't matter where they're at in the world. They don't care. They'll delete somebody for their honor. And if their honor feels threatened or betrayed, then guess what? They're going to start to delete. And guess what just happened en masse? Trump had the provocation that gave him the authority, or I would say not the authority, but the impetus to be able to say, hey, we're going to start cutting off all these folks from the third world countries, and we're going to start looking at reversing their TPS or whatever protections. You're now seeing that with the Somalis. You're going to see that with the Afghanis. You're going to see that with the Syrians. You're going to see that with so many people. Why is that? Quite simply stated, America can't support all that. America can't do all that. Not when you're a country that's in bankruptcy. And people don't want to get it, but I said it. This is a country in bankruptcy. So what do you do for bankruptcy? You got to start shedding people. You cannot shed your core. You can't shed Social Security. Not just yet. That's going to end up happening. That's like one of the last things to go. But what they tried to show you was those programs are in target. They're just at a farther range, but it's still in a target. Because you have a better psychological impact of I knew that it was coming. You're able to grieve more. You're able to manage the pain. You're able to manage the mental effects when you have that first threaten going on. It's psychological. Everything is. This is all a psychological operation. Going back to Hegseth and the veterans and things of that nature, you're now starting to see, because I'm going to tell you what's going to end up going on, what's going to end up happening. Because you're hearing the veterans speaking on out, because you now have a case of treason on both sides. I don't care how you state it. It's treason on both sides. It's actually treasonous activity on both sides, technically speaking. You're going to start to have factions in the military, and you're going to start to have active planning in the military of insurgency. I'm telling you, that's happening next. You want to know why? Because here's the reality. People understand what can happen at this age. Look, if you're going to have people dangling like Christmas ornaments at The Hague, you're going to have people being sent up to the gallows either in the Netherlands or here in the United States. Why do you think these folks moved on to military bases? Do you see how it makes sense? Well, we're going to move somewhere where we believe we're safe. We're safe. Now, keep in mind that all those that executed those orders to strike that boat, which is why you had a formal resignation, and I told you that. I told you that with Admiral Halsey. I said he got on out of there because he knew they were setting him up to be the fall guy. Not a lot of people picked up on that analysis. But again, if you're a black person, African American, Israelite, I don't care what you want to say, how you want to call yourselves, they weren't going to let that man retire in peace. No. They were setting him up. That was the classic setup. That was the classic set the black man up. I just thank the Most High that our brother has sense enough to see how they were trying to come for him, and he got out of there. That is honestly, that's a blessing. That's heartwarming. The black man that did not get, that avoided the setup. See, man, I'm telling you, no curses are reversing. And then you have the bootlicks of their own ilk coming on and saying, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then guess what? They got the military patsy. Well, it's me, and I'm here for the service and the pleasure of the presidency, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And that's going to set that person up to dangle, to hang. Man, cursed is a nation. And you see these curses reversing. Now, here's the reality of this. White supremacy is always it's two faces. You have the good white supremacists and you have the bad ones. You have the obvious and then you have the not so obvious. It's all the system of white supremacy cannibalizing itself. It's cannibalizing itself. That's why we had said, stay out of the way, get out of their business. We can comment from afar. Don't get in their business. Aren't you a patriot? Look, all I know is don't label me anything until you pay reparations. And we'll have that discussion. Because all I know is you're just trying to get me into whatever nonsense that you have. Because it went from the demonstrations and now this is going to be active resistance. That active resistance then creates insurgency. Insurgency then creates civil war with active arms. Because no state will want to be quote unquote embargoed. This is how close we are. This is how real this is. While people are distracted with Christmas shopping and, all of these Cyber Monday sales and blah, 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 people don't want to actually have a real understanding of analysis of what could possibly happen within the next couple of, could be potentially hours. And here's the thing, and I was actually saying this. I thought, to be honest, I thought this. There's no way that they would up and confront Russia, especially in Venezuela. But then here's the reality of this: they have to. America's going broke, like we had said. They have to. It wasn't a matter of if they wanted to do it. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go through and slaughter, especially when you've created this grand visage, this grand image of, well, we're the righteous and blah, 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 blah. And when it comes right down to it, they'll literally put on their shiesties and and put that work in. And they won't just do it to American citizens. They'll do it to other countries. Give me the loot. Give me the loot. Y'all didn't know that Trump grew up in the gangster rap era. I'm surprised that Trump wasn't on a bad boy hook. Talk about ask about me. Ask about me. But that's the reality of this. See, when we're talking about history, no, don't bring up history. Don't bring up our past. Don't bring up this. Don't see. They were trying to hide, and guess what they did? They fell right into their own trap. We knew that was going to happen. We saw that from a mile away. My bad. I kicked myself out of the studio. I'm back. Yeah, we saw that from a mile away. Now people want to say, oh, it's war crimes. We all knew this. Congratulations. You played yourself. Oh, and he did. He played himself. But I thought, you want to know why they're now jumping to throw Hegseth under the bus? And it's quite simple. They know that they're in trouble. And when you have veterans saying this, they know what that leads to. Because now you have a military that's literally unsure. What's your name? Not sure. Unfortunately, this is idiocracy, but this is in the real world and it has real life consequences. This is from New York Times. Lawmakers suggest follow up boat strike could be a war crime. Top Republicans have joined Democrats in demanding answers about the escalating military campaign the Trump administration says is aimed at targeting drug traffickers. And the reality is this, and this is Representative Mike Turner, Republican of Ohio, raised concerns about the recent operations in the Caribbean. A top Republican and Democrat in Congress suggests on Sunday that American military officials might have committed a war crime in President Trump's offensive against boats in the Caribbean after a news report said that during one such attack, a follow-up strike was ordered to kill survivors. You want to know how bad that sounds? That sounds horrible. You can't shake that. And this is going to be the classic. Trump's going to throw somebody under the bus. It's classic. We all saw this coming. And then what ends up happening when people get thrown under the bus, people get afraid, they get scared, they get apprehensive, they get nervous. Wait, why am I getting thrown under the bus? Don't worry, Pete, you're a great guy. You're a great God-fearing man that's making sure that they're saying prayers for our fallen Christian prayers. And you're talking about Valhalla in the Christian prayers. That doesn't make sense. I didn't make this up. That's literally what they were talking about. Valhalla and Christian prayers. Okay. I'd like to help me understand. I have to say that to my students when they just run their mouth and they have no idea what they're saying and why they're running their mouth. They're just running their mouth because when you are that person that just you have nothing to say, you ran out of everything, you have no ideas. I would and Sean, I would say this. Will South Africa file a claim at the UN for this? Honestly, yes, they could. Oh, yes, they could. They could file the claim on behalf. And to me, that was another thing. Is this where BRICS has interoperability in real world operations? Russia's there. You already know China's there. Will South Africa join? And here's the crazy thing about this. Excuse me. You had jets going to Brazil. And I would say the only reason that you have jets going to Brazil, number one, you have the backup designated survivors. And then number two, you have your family heading out the country. Or you're doing some sort of a diplomatic mission to where you're hand carrying and hand delivering, right? Whatever diplomatic or state notice. Because I'm pretty sure that there was some sort of a declaration of partnership and things of that nature. Because now you have Russia. Russia is now actively helping the Venezuelans. So now you'll have a legal claim against the U.S., and then you'll have military interoperability between really BRICS nations and BRICS adjacent nations, BRICS partners. Could this be the kickoff? Honestly, I'm not sure. Could it get real bad with the strike? Yeah. Do I believe that Trump will strike? I would honestly say the chances of a strike, in my opinion, we're about 75%. I'm not too convinced. I still think that, he'll bluster and say all this other stuff. But to be quite honest, I'm going to tell you this. When you're going broke and you're becoming poor, you're going to start lashing out. You're going to start targeting everybody. Rich people do not like to become poor people. Rich nations don't like to become poor nations. Because then as soon as the lash out happens, and let's just say this, let's just say Florida's targeted. Well, the problem's then going to be in Congress, are we going to release FEMA funds in a part of the country that's actively being targeted to rebuild? Absolutely not. And I will tell you this, just from experience, last year, if Trump goes in to Venezuela with military, I'm going to say conventional military targeting, that will open the door for Russian munitions, Russian missile to target Florida. It doesn't feel good to say that. But I'm pragmatic. I'm a realist. It doesn't feel good to say that. I live here. All the able-bodied people will up and leave out of Florida so quick it won't even be funny. This is my home. I fought for this piece of sand because Florida is a sandbar. I fought for this piece of sawgrass. I fought for this swamp. I'm not going anywhere until you get an emergency alert on your screen, on your cell phones. No, they're not going to strike Texas. And again, I told you that early. I told you that like 2 years ago. Florida strategically is the easier place to strike. You have beachhead operations. You actually would have a foothold in the United States, the continental United States, or the contiguous United States. And then they're able to then occupy different places and spaces. I told you that line they'd probably go up to is about I-10. And then they'd have a buffer zone clear into Georgia. Yeah, it is that real. It is that real. Well, that's the first partition of the nation. What do I do with my American passport? How would that would I still be technically a U.S. citizen if I'm in a war zone? I don't know. There's some good questions. I don't have the answers to. I don't have those answers. But the crazy thing is that on a Monday morning, that is literally the thought process. And now I don't think that they'll just strike and be like, timeout. I don't think that that's going to happen with, like they did with Iran. Timeout, timeout. Okay, I had to strike you so I could, make it look like I did something. How much money do you want? Timeout. I don't think that that's going to be the case. First off, I believe what they'll do is they'll probably obliterate Trinidad and Tobago. And honestly, you'd have to. That's just warfare. You set yourself up for the losing side. Cuba will probably actively target the United States, but you also have halos. You have a system that could then protect Cuba. Tit for tat, you'd have to strike Miami. So all those folks at Doral, Southcom area, for good measure, they'll probably blow up the golf course, which is right across the street from Southcom. Literally, it's catty corner to Southcom. And then strategically speaking, while you're at it, you probably target Tampa. because you have Southcom and Special Operations Command right there. And Iran will probably say, for good measure, please target CENTCOM. That's how warfare works. It's not in a vacuum. It's not just a bubble of one or two people. That's how warfare works. It's sad to see, and it's sad to say that's how that works. And then people will be in panic because why? Because it would show, wow, that's how a hypersonic looks. Talk about psychological disruption. I would just tell you all, just keep me in prayer. Because I would have to have some decisions. I'd actually have to have, major decisions to make. So, am I comfortable? Absolutely not. Do I know and see this is a reality? Absolutely. This is a clear and present reality. This is why I'm telling you, because the moment that goes, I'm telling you, you'll have a couple of states then declaring secession. Probably California first, and then Washington, and then Oregon, and then probably parts of Nevada and Arizona. Parts. We've never been in such a fragile state. I'm just giving you the analysis. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm just giving you the analysis. See, these are all the calculations that they may not take into consideration. Or they have, and they just said, look, we got to do it anyway because we're at $38.5 trillion and counting. We're about to take some unsufferable losses. We're about to lose access to trading partners. It's getting really bad out there for them. So with that said, family, I do have to get going. I have some vehicle issues that I got to make sure I get taken care of. All of a sudden, but the Most High is good. He's truly awesome. He is truly awesome. And I knew why that came up. Things like that come up when you're close. When you're close to whatever is happening. If you'd like to support this channel, support this work, you can do so right here. $sign COVAWK1 for Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. Hey, listen, I didn't do none of this. They did it. I'm just saying. They did this. We're just talking about it. They're going to tell you, don't talk about it. Don't say anything. No, we're going to talk about this. Why not? Y'all embarrassed? And they'll say, yes, they are. They're embarrassed. And we know it. I mean, it is embarrassing. That's why people are going to fight for their respect, for their honor, because this is actually an embarrassing situation for these folks. But all we can do is pray for our people, that the Most High protects his people, which he will during this time of their calamity. And it's their calamity, not ours. So with that said, family, I got to get up on out of here. When things do pop off, please keep me in prayer. Ay, Dios míos. I will vote for Donald Trump. Ding, 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 ding. I will vote. I'm merengue chat bachata merengue ding 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 ding. All right, family. With that said, shalom, salama, CMA, shalom, peace and blessings, Yasharel.